This is Build Beyond You. Good morning, Wills. I'm glad I'm your motivator. You're all very welcome. We are concluding our series of breaking cycles. We begin a new year with another theme. And as you can see, I'm talking about breaking cycles by becoming who you are. We want to look at focus and identity. Breaking cycles by becoming who you are. Who are you called to be? Who are you meant to be? We've said focus is alignment, and we've talked about identity. What are those innate abilities in you? Identity is about your essence, your character, your values, because they determine a lot the decisions that you make, the choices that you make. Identity is a description of who you are. What are your values? Now that we are concluding 2026, what are you taking from 2026 when it comes to focus and identity? Can you comfortably say that, okay, I've achieved something in 2026 in terms of yourself? You know that this channel is about you and building beyond you and growing and rebuilding inwardly before you start building outwardly. And even if you're already in the journey of building outwardly, can you replenish? Can you continue feeding who you are so that where you draw from, because I say out of my belly shall flow rivers of living water, where you draw from does not dry up. So you have to keep feeding yourself. If you continue with this attitude in 2026 of replenishing, of pouring into yourself, acquiring the knowledge that you need to acquire to move on with your daily tasks and activities, making a difference in other people's lives, being of impact, you must be able to pour in. You cannot keep drawing from yourself and emptying yourself without replenishing, lest you're going to get to a point and become empty and it will drain you. And that's why we get to burnout. So we don't want to get to burnout. And that's why we focus so much on rediscovering who we are. We focus so much on breaking cycles that hinder who we are supposed to be. We focus so much on rebuilding and rebuilding and rebuilding. Rebuilding never comes to an end. Investing in ourselves never comes to an end. That is investing mentally, investing physically, investing socially, investing relationally. Investing in ourselves never comes to an end. So what are your assets? Is intellectual property one of the assets that you can comfortably say that, yes, that's my asset? It's coming to the end of the year and we want to focus so much on becoming who you are meant to become and improving on areas that require you to improve on. Okay, I want us to ask ourselves that question: who do we want to become 2026? What is it in us that we want to live in 2025 and do not want to go with in 2026 that we do not like? Because you see, we've been focusing so much on breaking cycles, overcoming obstacles that hinder us from flourishing in our true identities and stepping into our true leadership authority. What is it that you want to live in 2025? Have you asked yourself that question? Have you? What is it that you want to leave behind? Even before I go ahead, I'm going to ask you a very simple question. I want you to write it down and I want you to think about it, and you can answer if you feel like you need to. The question is, do you believe that most people fail because they lack discipline, or they are still attached to an old identity? I will repeat that. Do you believe that most people fail because they lack discipline, or because they are still attached to an old identity? Now you can comment discipline if you believe that most people fail because of a lack of discipline, or comment identity if you believe that most people fail because they are still attached to an old identity. Comment that as we start the session. because it's going to be about identity and focus. So remember right from the start, I said focus is alignment, okay? And identity is who you are. And we've said that we are looking at breaking cycles by becoming who you are. Now, when we say breaking cycles by becoming who you are, what do we mean? Focus is not just about what you do. It is about who you are becoming. Because when you're focusing, you are aligning. It's not just about what you are doing, the tasks that you are performing, the activities you are carrying about. It is about who you are becoming. Stick with me, you're going to see what I mean by this. Every cycle you repeat is connected to an identity that you are still carrying. If you are still repeating addictive behaviors, negative behavioral patterns, anything that you know very well does not serve who you want to be, who you are becoming, that is a signal that you are still connected to an identity. Because your old self, your old identity is still familiar with the old patterns. But the question is, how does identity shape focus? Who you're becoming, who you are, who you want to be is identity. How does it shape your focus? You know, you don't focus randomly. You don't just wake up in the morning and start focusing, right? You focus in alignment with your identity. You focus in alignment with who you are becoming. If you have said 2025 ending, let's say from the time that we started these sessions, you have been on a transformation journey of, you've made a decision that I'm going to keep time, that I'm going to focus my energies on growing myself, probably relationally or mentally or emotionally, or I'm going to focus on adding value to myself. I'm going to go back to the drawing board and look at what are those values that motivated me, that made me who I am, that describe the person that I want people to see. Like a positive person, someone who brings joy to their environment, someone who brings positive vibes, someone who teaches, someone who encourages, someone who... It depends on how you want people to view you, or what makes you feel satisfied. Some of us may not necessarily mind about what people think about us. We mind about what impact am I leaving on people. And I think that should be the attitude. What impact do you have on people? When you step into an environment, do you bring positive vibes? Do you encourage people to go beyond who they are? Okay? Do you bring out the best in people? Are you inspirational in your character, in the words that you speak, in your actions? That's identity. And this is how identity is going to shape your focus. When you are drawing back to your old habits, because I've said every cycle that you repeat is connected to an identity you are still carrying. When your old identity is kind of like pulling you back, it's pulling your attention. Remember, I talked about energy, attention, and your time. When your old identity comes back, let's say this end of year 2025, it's pulling you back to familiar habits. Because now you're so used to doing things the way you were doing things, you kind of like go back to familiar habits. You're like, I'm kind of like used to this. I'm not very comfortable with who I am becoming. So the old you is going to kind of like pull you back, because you're very comfortable with the patterns that you have been, used to or familiar to. You'll go back to the old narratives. But who are you becoming? Who do you want to be in 2026? Ask yourself that question. I've asked a question and I want everyone to answer this question You can comment identity or discipline. Do you think most people fail because of a lack of discipline, or do you think they are attached to an old identity as a reason as to why they fail? Answer discipline if you think most people fail because of a lack of discipline. Answer identity if you think it's because they are attached to an old identity as a reason as to why they fail, okay? Moving forward. Focus is not about what you do, but it's about who you are becoming. Who you're becoming is going to shape your focus. So why does focus feel hard? Why is it so hard for you to focus? Do you know why? Focus challenges who you have been. Focus, every time you're like, I need to wake up early, I need to keep time. You used to go maybe like at 7, now you want to go at 6. Or you used to go like at 9, now you want to go at 7. And you're getting your things together. You want to become focused. Or you used to read a book a day, you used to read a chapter a day, now you want to read 2. Or you've not been reading anything, now you're saying, I have to add value to myself. I have to professionally and personally develop myself. So I'm going to be adding knowledge to myself. I'm going to be reading about this, whatever area that you are in. If you're a leader, I'm going to be at least listening to one video about leadership a day. I'm going to, if you're in business, I'm going to learn one thing about business. Like you're setting yourself, you're focusing. Now, why do you think it feels hard? Focus challenges who you have been. Remember, there are familiar patterns that you are used to. There were comfortable patterns that you are used to. And now you are focusing. You want to become a totally different person. Yes, life, as Ngedo has said, both identity and discipline. That is true, according to you. Why do you think that? Uncle Jeff, you said identity. Could be they are attached to an old identity. That could also be true. Depends on how you see it. Especially when it comes to familiar habits, comfortable patterns. We kind of like get attached to the old identity. But now we want to focus forward. If we become knowledgeable about these very small things, it's going to be much easier for us. Now, if your identity has shifted, focus is going to be a little easier. If your identity has not yet shifted, if who you are becoming or who you are hasn't yet shifted, focus cannot sustain old habits. Focus cannot work together with those comfortable negative behavioral patterns. They will be parallel. They won't work together. They won't work together. And cycles do not just break when you start changing your behavior. They break when your identity shifts. As in when who you are becoming or who you are shifts. That's how you break cycles, because somehow these distractions, we've been talking about distractions last week, they start falling off. They start falling off because now you are paying attention. The distractions start falling off. And how you can evidently say there's an identity alignment, or who you're becoming is starting to align with your values, is starting to align with your choices, is starting to align with, who you want to see. Focus is your evidence. Focus is your evidence. Identity will direct your attention. Who you're becoming or who you are will direct your attention to what you listen to, what you allow your eyes to see. It will direct your attention to the environments you go to, the people you relate with. Identity, who you're becoming or who you are, will direct your attention to. Your mindset will begin to change. Every time your identity shifts or who you're becoming shifts from one level to another, you'll grow. You'll see the graph going like this. Whereas old identities pull you backward. So each and every time we say, I don't feel like I'm pushing forward, I feel like I'm doing no but nothing, a lot more, but nothing is changing. There's something that is not changing. Something is pulling you backward, and you need to pay attention to what is it. What is that old pattern or comfortable pattern or habit that is pulling you backward? It could even be your thoughts. What are you allowing to think about that is interfering with your focus? And awareness is your first awakening. The moment you become aware, then you are awakened. Okay. So if I start focusing, it's going to shape my identity. Let me purpose. Let me write down time. What exactly am I going to do with my time? Let me write down energy. What exactly am I going to do with energy? Let me write down attention. What exactly am I going to do in regards to this word attention? So, awareness is your first awakening. Because focus will reveal who you're becoming. Focus is alignment. And you cannot focus forward while you are identifying backward. If you are still identifying with your old behavioral patterns, with your old habits, with comfortable patterns that you are used to, you cannot focus forward. We are going to 2026 and we want to move forward to a new us. Remember, this platform is about building inwardly before you build outwardly. Even if you want a very beautiful business, even if you want a promotion at work, build yourself inwardly, because whatever you do outwardly is going to reveal who you are inside. Okay? So let's focus forward by identifying forward, not identifying backward. Write down all those small areas, those habits that are pulling you back. Is it your thoughts? Is it the words you speak? Is it the people you're surrounded with? Is it the environments that you're in? What are those things that you need to drop off in 2025? That was an awakening session. Now I want us to go into a reflective session. When you increase on your focus, you will realize old identities resurface. Trust me. If this has happened to you, you will understand. The moment I hear you, identity shift is crucial. Breaking limiting self-beliefs, yes. Hence, shifting your focus, true. Now, you will realize every time you increase on your focus, old identities resurface. Have you experienced that? Now, let me give you good news. It is not failure. It is exposure. Every time you are moving forward, you are increasing on your focus, you are aligning with your values, with the decisions you're making, with your choices. You are narrowing down, you're paying attention to what kind of energies do I allow in and do I not allow in my environment? How do I spend my time? What things do I spend my time on? Every time you increase on that focus, old identities resurface. Do you know what? You know what I mean by exposure? It's because now you are aware. You are aware of who you are or who you're becoming, okay? You can differentiate between the old you and the new you. That's why when they resurface, your eyes will be so opened. Whereas if you are not on an intentional journey of focusing, okay, of shifting your identity, of changing your lifestyle, of breaking cycles, you may not necessarily see the difference between these two. So you're not failing. Every time old identities resurface, you are not failing. It is exposure. You'll be like, this is it. It's an exposure. But now ask yourself a question. Why do old identities return? Why do old identities return? Old identities return when discipline increases. The moment your discipline increases, old identities want to return. You remember, I think last week, part 1, we talked about relapsing. Every time you are starting to focus, old identities return. You have become disciplined, old identities want to come back. Because growth demands consistency. Old identities test your growth, test your resilience, test your consistency, test you on, are you serious? Are you sure? Is this real? Or are you just playing? Remember, you have removed all the comfort. Now you have decided to stretch your core, stretch yourself to shift forward. Definitely, old identities are going to want to creep in. They're going to want to creep in. Every time you remove comfort, every time you increase your discipline, every time you increase your focus, old habits, old identities are going to creep in. That shows you that your growth curve is like. So don't feel like, oh my God, I'm going backward, I'm failing. No. It's because you are aware. You can see the difference between the old identity and the new identity. When the old tries to creep in, you're saying, you think that you are failing. You think you are going backward. It's because now the old has been exposed. And the new you has recognized that this is an old me that I do not like. So now that you're aware, old is exposed. And it doesn't like being exposed. And do you know why the old identity comes back? Because it wants to reclaim control. The old identity, the oldie wants to reclaim control. If you read the Bible, you know about Jacob and Israel. Jacob said, Jacob is always fighting Israel. Remember, God gave him a new name, Israel. And then Jacob still wanted to be there, like, I am still there. You understand? So the reason as to why your old identity resurfaces and the reason as to why you're able to see that the difference is because it's exposed and you are aware and you are growing, okay? And the old identity wants to reclaim control. But now remember, you're a new person. You're focusing. We're going to 2026. Yeah? You want to be a totally different person. If you've been having one stream of income or two streams of income, you now want to have 3, 4, 5, 6. Demands your consistency. It demands your attention, demands your commitment. It demands everything in you. It demands resilience. It demands growth. When you look at the book of Joshua, chapter 1, this was when Joshua was being commissioned to go out and now take on territories. God told him, be courageous. Do you know why he was telling him be courageous? Because to take on territories required him to stand firm on his feet. He was going to be challenged. So God was warning him much earlier, be courageous, be strong, be courageous. And he explicitly told him, yes, I have made a covenant with you and I have blessed you. Wherever your foot will step, you will conquer. Please note, I am holy. I do not tread on one leg is here, one leg is here. The moment you sin, I remove my glory. So imagine you're focusing, old identity is resurfacing. Won't you fight so hard to make sure that it doesn't reclaim control? You're going to 2026. Trust me the triggers are going to come because now your discipline has increased, your focus has increased, okay? Trust me, whether you like it or not. When a spirit leaves, it goes around in dry places and it says, let me go back to my home and first visit my former place. Wants to come back where it once was. Checks, finds the place clean. So if it finds when you are not consistent, resilient, courageous, strong, paying attention, being vigilant, being discerning, 2026 is going to demand you. So let's build inwardly if we want to see a difference in whatever we're doing outwardly. A broken you will produce broken results. Whatever you build will have a dent. That dent will become a wound. That wound will become a thorn in your flesh. So let's build inwardly so that whatever we build on the outside is not broken. And it starts with focusing. Focusing is alignment. So how do those old identities show up? They show up in old coping mechanisms. What are your coping mechanisms? What do you kind of like find yourself running to? Because they are familiar. Old identities show up in how you react emotionally. Please take note of that. How do you react emotionally? Old self-talk. You know how we talk down ourselves sometimes? As usual. It might not work. I'm not sure. You'd rather keep quiet. Start taming your mouth. Be very intentional now. 2026, we're going to be very intentional. That old identity wanting to reclaim self-control will show up in old relationships. There are relationships that God has specifically told you, this one has to come to an end. It was for that season, but you still want to go back because of people pleasing, because you feel like, oh my God, sometimes it has to take sacrifice. Because there are other destinies that are waiting for you. And there are connections that are not going to connect with the old you. They're waiting for the new you to surface. So if you allow old identities to resurface in 2026 and you're saying, God, I'm praying for divine connection, they are not going to come. They will not come to the old identity. They will come to the new you. So choose. Do you want to be courageous and strong for 2026? Or do you want to people please? Or do you want to be lukewarm, one leg here, one leg there? Or you want to remain the same in the mediocre level? Which one? If we go religious, that's Satan that pulls back always. Yeah, but sometimes we also overblame Satan. Sometimes it is us. Don't give him so much power. Don't give him so much power. That's why we need to be aware. Because we can't keep saying Satan, Satan, Satan. Sometimes it is us. To sit down and be aware of what is it that I am allowing. What are you allowing in? What energies are you allowing in your space? What are you spending your time on? You're not going to blame Satan when you're spending time on Netflix, when you could replenish by give Netflix 30 minutes, 1 hour, that's enough, 1 hour and a half, that's enough. You have to be disciplined. Your discipline has to increase in 2026. Let's stop admiring people who have 7 streams of income, 10 streams of income. They're not spending time on Netflix. By the way, they can't even afford to spend time on Netflix, but they don't even have time to do that. We're going to focus forward. We are going to build inwardly. 2026. Concurrently, as we build outwardly, we are building inwardly. Now, back to why you find yourself, how old identities show up. All identities show up not because you are regressing, like you're going backward. It is a revelation to you. It is an awareness to you that this is the old me, this is the new me. So don't feel like you are going backward. That means that now you are aware of the old you and the new you, and you need to be able to differentiate between the two. That's the old Jacinta speaking. That's the old Jacinta thinking. That's the old Jacinta doing. If you can differentiate between the old and the new, then you're beginning a new journey. So I want you to reflect on that. Why do you think we misinterpret this stage of we are transitioning? We are between old and new. We may misinterpret it. Okay, I think I'm going backwards. You are not going backwards. You are seeing things clearly. So I want you to reflect, what old you are you leaving behind? And who are you becoming? Because now you're seeing things clearly. So ask yourself a question. Which version of me is trying to survive? Which version of me is trying to survive? What identity is being threatened by focus? Identity is who you're becoming or who you are. Okay? Now, what about who you're becoming or who you are is being threatened by focus? Focus is alignment. What is that? Now I'm focusing. Now I'm moving forward. What is it threatening? What part of you is it threatening? Exposure, by the way, is part of transformation. Every time all these little things, they may look little, but they are not. The moment they are exposed, there's transformation that's happening. And I want you to learn that. Old habits are going to resist this change. But I need you to, like they say, pursue, overtake, overcome. Because old identities resist change. But when you are aware, it's going to prevent the relapse. It's going to prevent you going back to the old habits. When you are aware of these two people, Jacob and Israel, when you are aware of the new you, Israel, and Jacob, the old you, the habits, the behavioral patterns, it's going to prevent you from relapsing because you will fight hard. You will fight hard to say, no, I'm not going to go back there. Every time you focus, it reveals that internal conflict between Jacob and Israel. I am the one. Right? Yeah? That internal conflict, every time you focus. But every time you do not have that internal conflict, especially in the process of transitioning, then you know that you're not growing. Because how do you gauge growth? Personally. Leave alone the KPIs at work and everything. Now it is about you. I'm focusing on you. How do you gauge growth? Are you going to gauge growth by the salary increment? Or you're running a business and the business is, remember business, when the moment you register the business and it's called, okay, LLC or limited or whatever, it is a totally different entity from you. So when this business is growing and the money is increasing and the customers are, things are, visibility, that is a different entity. Do not confuse or mix up this business with you. Because when this business goes down, you're going to remain there with your eyes wide open. When this business is going up, you're going to remain the same you. Nothing about you, your skin color, your eyes, nothing is going to change. You're still going to be you. The question now, are you also growing when the business is growing? That's why we go through these classes. We are replenishing. Or are you emptying yourself so much for this business, meanwhile, that you're going to leave behind. And you are left empty. So back to the drawing board. Build inwardly as you build outwardly, so that you do not burn out, so that you don't get to a point and become empty. Okay? So, when you reflect, you'll have a choice. Do I choose Jacob? Do I choose Israel? 2026. Whatever resurfaces in your old behavioral patterns, in your old habits, in those comfortable zones where you were before, those old identities, release it. Release it. Release it. We're going to 2026. We're going to release those old habits. Let's go to the last part of this session. The first part, I was awakening you. Now we've been going through a reflective session. Now let's go to some serious structured learning. Let me remind those ones who have just come on, we are breaking cycles by becoming who we want to become, who we want to be, who we admire or aspire to be. Now that we have understood focus and identity, now that we have understood why the old habits come back, who we want to become, and what exactly we need to do, how do we replace the old patterns, the old negative behavioral patterns through focus? Are you ready? Now, one thing I want you to notice that you do not break patterns by fighting them. You break patterns by replacing them. Don't try to break the patterns. Don't fight them. Replace them. Focus is a replacement mechanism. Every time you focus, you are replacing whatever was hindering you. I want you to go away with this one. Focus is a replacement mechanism. Don't break patterns by fighting them. But the question is, why do patterns persist? Have you ever asked yourself a question? Why can't I seem to just let go of this behavior? Because they are familiar. Because there's a part of who you are that is still there. You're still carrying it. They are identity driven. And sometimes we emotionally reinforce them. That's why they persist. And being aware of Israel and Jacob doesn't replace them. Awareness is what I've been talking about earlier, right? It doesn't replace patterns. But now, how does focus replace patterns? When you focus, it will redirect your attention. So somehow you will not pay attention to your old behavioral patterns. This is how focus replaces patterns. It redirects your attention. You may not even like it, but it's helping. It's helping you overcome old negative behavioral patterns or behaviors that no longer serve you. If you were people pleasing, you now start focusing on something totally different. Totally different. You no longer seek validation. Open up a YouTube channel and start teaching on something. You'll have your validation from everybody saying, thank you, I've learned this. You'll have your validation. Just giving you an example of how you redirect your attention. So look at a negative behavioral pattern and look at the opposite of it. Now ask yourself, what can I do to achieve the opposite of this negative behavioral pattern? Let's call it a vice. What is that virtue? The opposite of this vice. How can I achieve this? Sit down and ask yourself, this is what I am struggling with. This is the opposite of it. How can I achieve this and drop this? Now we are focusing. That is how you redirect your attention. Because I've said you don't fight them. You replace the patterns. You don't fight them. And being aware only alone is not enough. You must replace. Focus is a replacement mechanism. Okay? Why? It interrupts repetition. Whatever you were repeating before, those familiar old habits or behaviors, those comfortable patterns, when you start focusing, it's going to interrupt that repetition. It's going to build new neurological pathways in your brain. Imagine if each and every time you are focusing on, let me read a chapter every single morning. Do you know what that does to you? Because you're planting a seed. You wake up in the morning, open the Bible, let me read Deuteronomy. Then the next day, let me open the Bible, let me read Joshua. Then the next day, you open up the Bible, let me read Romans. I'm just giving you an example of a repetitive, positive behavior. Remember, it's planting a seed, and it's not only planting a seed, but it's redirecting your attention to something totally different. If you've been waking up in the morning and maybe just going on your phone like this, every time you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do this. Yeah. The next thing, and you can redirect your attention from this to wearing your sneakers, your whatever, getting out and jogging. Putting your headphones on the head, jog. You're redirecting your attention. You're interrupting the repetition of the old ways. You're building a new neurological pathway. Your brain will start thinking differently, doing differently. Because what you focus on consistently becomes dominant. When you focus on negative behavioral patterns, they will become dominant. When you focus on old habits, they become dominant. Whatever you focus on becomes dominant in your life. If you focus on gossiping, slandering, just waking up in the morning and all you do in office is just talking about the other person, that's who you become. So what are you intentionally, choosing to focus on consistently? Because that's what is going to become dominant in your life. That is why we said focus is a replacement mechanism. That replacement mechanism requires consistency. At first, it will feel weak, but the more you do it, these old patterns that once felt powerful will fall off, because those old patterns feel powerful because they are being practiced every day. They are being practiced. They are not even being given room to leave me alone. Leave me. You're not letting them go. The more you practice, you're reinforcing them emotionally. You're giving them your time. You're giving them your energy. You're giving them your attention. You are practicing them. But if you consistently and intentionally, whether you like it or not, redirect your attention to something totally different, you are weakening or interrupting this old negative behavioral pattern or repetition. And it's losing its power, because now you're no longer practicing it. You're giving something different. So consistency strengthens that replacement. The more you consistently perform this area that you have chosen to focus on, it strengthens replacement. So let me give you a very small exercise as I close. Okay. Identify one old pattern, 2025, that you want to leave behind. Write it down. Identify one old pattern. Now, write one focus behavior Remember I told you that this is maybe the pattern? Maybe you've not been keeping time. What is that focus behavior? Identify one focus behavior. It's a new focus behavior that's going to replace this one. And then I want you to find what is going to reinforce this new behavior that you're identifying. 3 things. The reinforcement. What is that daily reinforcement that you're going to use as fuel for the new focus behavior to replace the old pattern? You first have to write down the old pattern, write down the new focus behavior, and write down just one daily reinforcement. After you've written them down, practice replacement, not resistance. Practice replacement. Practice replacement. Use the reinforcement you have written to push the new focus behavior to replace the old pattern. What you starve loses power. Whatever you starve loses power. Those negative behavioral patterns, those familiar habits, whatever you starve loses power. Whatever you focus on grows. If you have anything to take away today, that is what I want you to take away today. Patterns are replaced, they are not removed. Please remember that. I'm closing now. Focus weakens repetition. The more you focus, the more the old behavioral patterns are weakened. Okay? Consistency builds identity. Who you are becoming, who you aspire to be. The more consistent you are in the new focus behavior that you're going to write, be consistent with it. It's going to build a new you. Because transformation is practiced. You don't wake up in the morning and you are transformed. So you don't become free by fighting who you were. You become free by focusing on who you're becoming. Haven't I closed beautifully for you? We are going into 2026. If you want to become free, don't fight who you were. That was you. There's nothing you can do about it. I want you to become free by focusing on who you are becoming. Thank you very much for joining me on this live. I guess I'll see you tomorrow. May you have a fruitful day. Be fruitful, replenish, multiply, subdue, and take dominion. Okay. Next year, 2026, wherever we step our foot, Joshua 1, we conquer. We take over. Okay? But we are going to start with the small things that we're dealing with to build inwardly before we go out to build whatever we're building, or as we continue building outwardly. So my channel is Build Beyond You on YouTube, Build Beyond You on TikTok, Build Beyond You on Instagram. See you tomorrow. Love you. Bye-bye.